Steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, hitting you with another Bring a Trailer review. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to try to make this a little shorter. I know I kind of have that mindset each time, but let's go over this 65 Lincoln Continental Convertible just a little bit different. If we look, you pretty much see you've got your front three-quarter shot with the top down. You've got your rear shot. Some good photos of the car overall. We'll jump into some of the detail in a minute. Here you have basically, we know it's a four-door convertible. It's white paint, M-code, beige leather upholstery. Built December 8th, Cincinnati, Ohio, DSO. And you have some videos here, okay? I'll summarize the videos. I did just watch them briefly. And I will tell you, Bring a Trailer does a fantastic job. More than likely, I would assume coaching folks on what they need to help bring some good money to their car. And you can kind of see I jumped through these quickly. This is fantastic. This is what you want to see. You want to see the convertible operating top down, top up functions. And great job. You could see in the other video, the gentleman was sitting in the car, which is what you always want to do. Even if you have the remote, you want to keep your foot on the brake, and that's key, right? So you've got some videos in here. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description. I watched a video the other day from a guy. I had never watched his videos. I stumbled across it, and he had a first experience with Bring a Trailer, and he actually gave the pros and cons, and I won't give it away. It's a good watch. He sells a lot of cars on a lot of different forums, sites, apps, you name it, pretty much all the top ones. But he had been on Bring a Trailer before, and he had never used it. And check it out. I'll put a link again in the description. So basically what you have here, you see the 65 Ohio plate. I'll summarize this. When I look at this car all around, I think it looks pretty good, okay? I'm always skeptical for vehicles that come from the Rust Belt area, things like that. It might be, judging a book by its cover. And I think mentally that's what I sometimes will think. But I have to remind myself that these cars, if they were cared for well enough, they weren't driven in harsh winters, hopefully, and things like that. But if you scan through these photos, I think you're going to see this is a pretty nice 65, right? And it looks like the guy is just ready to kind of move on. You can see these were the original. I've never really talked about these, but when you purchase the car new, it came with this little nameplate. And these are often, they fall off, the adhesive or whatever, and they're often in the glove box, if even there. I will go over some detail that you guys are accustomed to seeing, but as you can see here, I'm kind of just going through a little quick, and I do apologize. But again, I'm trying to, maybe not make every video 25 to 30 minutes, if you know what I mean. The key thing on a car like this that looks damn good is having someone inspect it. As I've said, I know I beat a dead horse sometimes, but you want to have someone inspect it, okay? You want to have someone look to make sure it's not crusty or crunchy or whatever you want to call it, basically rusty underneath. We can see here it does not, this is something that's being discussed in the questions, does not have an air-conditioned compressor. That tells us it's heat only. Also, you can see, as I've kind of talked to you guys many times, you have the one, and there's going to be another one here. This means it's a two-port fuel pump. You want the three-port. Nathan Wilson, again, did chime in on the one that he sold that had the two-port, and he said it had the helper electric fuel pump, which I've talked a little bit about in the past. Yeah, you could do that, but you would want to change this out at some point, with a three-port. You get a little bit better angle there. Again, the air-conditioned compressor would sit right above, and this is the reservoir for the steering pump fluid, Type F only. We do see that it has here the single reservoir. You would want to have that upgraded. Now, ironically enough, in the comments, the gentleman actually did have it upgraded. So, again, that's one reason why I'm trying to kind of review these a little bit more. Before, believe it or not, I wasn't. I just would kind of go right in with only looking at a couple photos. This fan, I did talk to Blair yesterday, Blair Farmer in Clearwater, been working on these cars 40 plus years. He did confirm, I think from 61 all the way up to maybe 67, if you had a non-air conditioned fan, I think the fan was the same for the majority, if not all of those years. So if you see this, It does look a little odd, and it's because it's the non-air conditioned fan. There's not a clutch. This car also does not have the fan shroud. Those fan shrouds have gotten pretty expensive, especially for, I think, 64, 65. They're metal. Other years, they're kind of like a fiberglass material. But I like to have the fan shroud, whether it's an air-conditioned car or not. It helps keep all of that air flowing right across this radiator, which is key. If this car is going to come anywhere into a warmer climate, although it can get warm, obviously, in the Midwest, let's be honest, certainly I would recommend, flushing this radiator, going with an aluminum radiator, or at least adding the fan shroud back on. I'm not 100% certain if some of the cars, I want to say some of the cars did not have a fan shroud, and it might have been the non-AC cars. But, I'll maybe dig into that topic a little bit deeper on another video. Okay, one thing I noticed on these photos, this is a very, very, very oily setup engine, okay? Undercarriage, I should say. You have seen me talk about some of these. They typically are drier underneath, but I can tell you this, whether you really care how clean the undercarriage is or not, I don't think it's going to at all disrupt the fun factor of this car. You're going to put the top down, the windows down, you're going to cruise with your family, you're going to have a great time. But if you're anything like me, you're kind of going, okay, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's got to be something, and I'm not saying it's catastrophic, okay? Don't get me wrong. These cars do tend to leak. But if it's me, I'm going to end up pressure washing all this, cleaning it, trying to, let's be honest, get rid of the oil leak wherever it's at, okay? And they do tend to leak oil. Any good mechanic could easily figure out. It's probably going to be a couple of different things on these engines. Don't want to get into all that, but it's very messy. Also, if you ever look at these, which I knew it was going to do that, if you ever look at the motor mounts on these, okay, imagine all of that weight after all of those years, they get pretty crunchy, okay? And that could be why the fan shroud is removed, okay? Because what's going to happen over time is the engine's going to sit on those, the rubber, if you will, on the engine mounts, and it's going to kind of smush down, right? Think of a hamburger pressing down on it over all those years. It gets the oil, obviously, and different things on it, and they just deteriorate, okay? They're not the hardest thing to change. A good mechanic can change these fairly easy, jacking up the motor a little bit, putting some wood in here, and changing the motor mounts. They are specific to the convertibles, so you do have to go to the right folks to get them. There are different folks that either re-vulcanize them, or there are a couple of guys out there that apparently have some new old stock ones that are really nice condition. I put some on my 64 and I loved them. But I'll tell you this is, as the motor sits down a little, as these collapse, if you will, and I'm only talking a little bit, it will tend to cause the radiator fan to hit that metal shroud on there, and that's sometimes why it's removed. So again, I'll go into more topic in that in the future, but bottom line, you can imagine a car that's 60 years old, it's going to need some stuff, okay? And again, this is probably a mix between power steering fluid. This is the pump right here on the front of the crank, and oil. But, I mean, you can just see, you don't have to be a mechanic to know there's definitely something going on. Again, you could keep pouring fluid in it and drive the car all the time as long as you top the fluids off and never have an issue. Totally get it. But I just don't like how much fluid's there. It would drive me crazy. If you got a nice house, you're going to be damaging your driveway and all that. Again, here's another win. I think Bring a Trailer does a fantastic job of either reinforcing to these folks, maybe they watch these videos, or this is good stuff. You want to see where has some of the money went. You see some of these higher invoices, hours put into restoration. That one's a little odd. Hill's Classic Cars doesn't really give a lot of detail there. Obviously, they're wanting to get paid for their 24 hours, but, what was it? Doesn't really describe, right? Here's another one. These could obviously easily coincide with that, different, center link. This is for the front suspension. This does have to be changed, or you can have a lot of drifting as you're driving the car. That center link is a key thing. You got wheel cylinders in the V-belt and stuff like that. So you can see here, again, this kind of coincides with probably where the labor goes. So that's a good thing to look through all the photos. You can see some of the convertible stuff, the knife switches. If you see that word knife, John Cashman's been on the podcast. He's talked about it. That deals with the auto drop windows in the rear. And they're considered what they call knife switches. You can see again, $6,200 invoice. So the good thing is this gentleman has put some money into it. Jamco, I haven't talked about them, but they're the ones where a lot of people will go and get different parts. He's got the power brake conversion. Unfortunately, I don't think he includes a photo, but he did in the comments. So it's great for these. Oh, actually, I lied. There you go. It's great for these folks to be active in the comments when these auctions are live, but there you go. That is the upgrade. This is the dual reservoir, as I've said. He spent the time. He spent the money. Kudos to him. And you got this piece here that kind of comes off. That's the proportioning valve. That's good stuff. Here again, another $1,000 invoice. So we kind of went through this one a little quicker. Hopefully you guys appreciate it. Maybe we'll pick up some more followers that aren't going, wow, 25, 30-minute videos every time, okay? So what do I like about this car? In conclusion, I like that if you really look at it, it's solid, I think, in my opinion, okay? I think it's a car that you could get depending on where you live. You may not care about the air conditioning, even if you're in a warm climate. This is a car you can get in. You can tell that someone's put some money into it and enjoy it, all right? Is it perfect? Absolutely not. My friend TC, Teresa Connor, will always say they always need something, okay? I'm sure that's a spinoff of other quotes as well. But on a Lincoln, truer words have never been spoken, in my opinion. They always need something, okay? You can see here, one thing I've never really talked about, I knew it was going to do that. With the air conditioning, this is set up a little bit different, the little regulator thing, because it doesn't have the wording and things like that, signage, if you will, placard, I don't know what to call it. It doesn't have that for the air conditioning because, again, it just has the heat. So those are some of the things I like about it. Some of the things I don't like, okay? So what I would suggest to sellers is he has some photos underneath it. Again, a lot of this, I think attention is going to be taken away to how oily all that stuff is, right? Again, these are considered undercarriage photos, so thank you very much. I would like to see maybe a couple more up here. You can see a little bit. The floor pans don't look too horrible. But again, if I'm having someone inspect this car, I'm having them go all underneath it. I'd like to see a few more photos up in this way. A lot of these folks, they may not want to, they may not be able to crawl on the ground if they don't have a jack or they don't feel comfortable doing that, or maybe they're, a little bit older and they just don't want to. Totally understand, but I'd like to see a few more of those. There's not much that I don't like about this car. I mean, I think it's one that someone's going to end up getting a car that's pretty damn nice. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to have some meat on the bone, if you will, to clean it up maybe, freshen some things up if it's the motor seals and whatnot. The last couple things I'll say is, number two, the thing I dislike, I love compasses in old cars. Obviously, this isn't a factory feature, but with the little holes drilled there, I'd imagine someone's either going to go, hey, I love this, let's leave it. If you take it out, you're going to end up wanting to get another ashtray cover here. So that pulls out, the ashtray's there. The cigarette lighter, would go there if you're looking to charge your phone, if it works and things like that. So that's one very minor picky thing. The last thing is, I've talked about the engine mounts, the motor mounts. Again, they're not super expensive, but to find someone to do that work, what you're going to end up doing is, by the time you drop the oil pan to potentially fix the oil leak there with that gasket, and if you're going to end up doing the motor mounts, you're going to end up wanting to put a new fuel pump on it, okay, or oil pump underneath it, right? If you're going to take the pan down or have someone do it. Basically, what I'm getting at is you'll kind of hit an avalanche of a few things you need to do if you're going to go that far. So if you're going to do the oil pan gasket, you might as well do the oil pump, okay? If you're going to do the oil pump and you kind of got that stuff taken apart, you might as well do the water pump, okay? If the water pump's going to be off, and again, I apologize, I don't really have a visual. If the water pump is going to be off, then you're going to want to take the timing cover off, and this is my third/fourth thing that I don't like about it is they didn't really talk about maybe some of the front end things they've done. Now, I apologize. I could have missed it. I did go through this a little quick, but if you look in here and you don't see a receipt for the timing gear, that really needs to be done, okay? I'm going to do a video in the near future. The timing gear on these I've talked about, it has to be done. Eventually, those little teeth on each one of those gears or that gear itself, they're going to eventually kind of fall and break, and they're going to get in the oil pan. They're going to get sucked up in the oil pump, okay? It's not as catastrophic as you think. It can cause problems. It could cause the timing to jump on the engine, and you don't want that. But basically, the point that I was getting at is, those are the few things, again, from someone that's been around these cars a bit. You get this car and you go, wow, okay, great. I spent a pretty penny for it. I'm driving it, right? But there are those things you really got to do. And again, if you're going to go into the timing setup, which pretty much any mechanic should be able to do, you're going to have the water pump off. If you're going to have the water pump off, you might as well go to Lincoln Land and get another water pump. And you can kind of see where you're going at that point. You go, well, if I'm going to do the oil pan gasket, let's take down the oil pan. Let's maybe have it sandblasted and repainted, right? Because all the paint's off of it. If we're going to do that, we might as well put an oil pump. So again, it is being a little nitpicky there, but I wanted to kind of give you guys that intel, if you will. Lastly, this little guy here, there's a couple of these in this area, but this is the big one. This can rot over time, and this breaks. And if you go to the usual suspects, I think this is like $100, right? So it's little things like that someone might spend 50, 60 grand on a car, and they go, man, I got my dream car. But oh, by the way, now I'm going to have to spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand, depending on your skill level. If you can't do it yourself and you find a mechanic that says, sure, I'll work on a Lincoln, you're going to hit that little bit of a snowball, and you're going to have to do all that stuff. So not trying to deter anyone. That's what we call Lincoln life. And I think that's going to wrap up this video. So tried to keep it under 20 minutes. I think we did that. Check out Lincoln Addict podcast. You could just Google it, or you can search via any podcast app. You can also, if you Google, you'll land on the website, which is lincolnaddict.podbean.com. You can listen right there in your browser. Take care. Good luck to someone. It ends in 5 days. And leave a comment. What do you think it'll sell for? You think it'll hit 50 grand? One just sold for, I think it was 63,000. Nice car. Will this one hit that number? Let me know what you think. Thanks, everyone. Peace.